I have a new family now, and I'm cutting ties with my ugly, creepy mom. She's not invited to my wedding, and she won't see my kids.
When Lena said those words, I felt something snap inside me. I thought, maybe I don't have to fulfill my duties as a parent anymore. Thank you. That's actually a relief. Lena was stunned, her eyes wide at my unexpected response.
Really? You're okay with that? You won't see me ever again? Well, if you absolutely insist, I might let you meet my baby if you cover the delivery and childcare costs.
I looked Lena straight in the eye and replied firmly as she mumbled her conditions. No, that's not necessary. Do whatever you want. Seeing Lena's shocked face, I resolved to completely sever ties with her. My name is Karen Morris. I'm 50 years old, a single mother with one child. But my daughter Lena is already an adult. Raising her was tough, but now I'm finally at the starting line of living my own life. The reason I became a single mom was because of my ex-husband, Mike's infidelity. I met Mike at a community-organized mixer here in Chicago. Basically, a local dating event. Mike was quite the looker and always surrounded by women. Though I was attracted to his appearance, I didn't consider myself particularly attractive. I figured he was out of my league and kept my distance.
Mind if I sit here?
For some reason, Mike approached me. As we talked, we hit it off over our shared experience playing basketball in school and our similar tastes in food. We started seeing each other. And before I knew it, Mike surprised me with a confession. A few months into dating, I found out I was pregnant. Things moved quickly, and I was thrilled. But apparently, Mike didn't feel the same.
What? Pregnant? Are you sure it's mine?
That was the first thing he said after hearing my news. What are you even saying? If it's not yours, whose child do you think it is? In the end, after many discussions, we decided to get married. Mike's parents were reasonable people, and they told him to take responsibility and raise the child with me. Although he wasn't thrilled about the idea, Mike eventually agreed to marry me after being persuaded by those around him. To him, I might have just been a fling, not someone he seriously cared about. But I believed that once our child was born, a sense of family would blossom. Most of all, I loved Mike and was happy to welcome a new life with him. And so we got married, and Lena was born.
She's beautiful, just like me.
That was the first thing Mike said when he saw Lena. And it was true. From the moment she was born, Lena had big sparkling eyes, long eyelashes, and a high nose that made her look incredibly cute, like a doll. Whenever we went out, people would often compliment her, saying she looked like a little princess. To anyone, Lena clearly resembled Mike more than me. Mike, proud as ever, adored her.
Lena is lucky she looks like her dad.
Yeah. I'm so happy I look like Daddy.
When Lena started speaking, she began saying things like that, as if she'd been brainwashed by Mike.
If I looked like Mom, it would have been a disaster. I'm glad I look like Daddy.
She didn't even know what disaster meant, yet Mike had instilled such ideas in her, and she mocked me because of it. Although her words hurt me, I couldn't deny that she was prettier because she took after Mike. There were days when Lena's comments stung, but I knew Mike was the source of them. Stop putting weird ideas into Lena's head.
But isn't it true? It's better she takes after me than you.
That might be true, but if this continues, she'll grow up looking down on people. Even when I seriously tried to discuss it with Mike, he just scoffed.
That's fine. It's better than being looked down on.
I was genuinely appalled by his response. I had lost all affection for Mike as a person. When Lena turned 5, Mike started having affairs and stopped coming home. Eventually, we divorced. I got custody of Lena. Our marriage had never been built on love, but I had done my best to make it work. Still, it ended there. From then on, I juggled work and parenting as a single mom. There were no heartwarming, movie-like moments of mother-daughter bonding. While Lena thankfully grew up healthy, she wasn't exactly an easy child.
Mom, can you wash my sport uniform? I need them tomorrow morning.
When she was in elementary school, she often handed me her sport uniform late on Sunday nights, right before bed, asking for last-minute favors. Tomorrow? That's impossible. Why didn't you give them to me earlier?
Well, I forgot.
Lena, I asked you the day before yesterday and yesterday if there was any laundry. How many times has this happened? No matter how much I scolded her, it was like talking to a wall. When Lena became a teenager, things got even worse.
Mom, I'll need a packed lunch.
Tomorrow? Why didn't you say anything earlier? I asked in a panic.
It's for the school excursion. I gave you the notice last week.
Lena responded without a hint of urgency. I haven't seen any notice in the last 3 months. And whenever I ask, you always say you didn't get anything. I was utterly exasperated. Most of the school updates I got were from other moms on social media or through their messages. Lena hardly told me anything, and our communication as parent and child was practically non-existent. While it might have been partly due to her teenage years, Lena had always been like this. Every day, I struggled to figure out how to improve my relationship with her. Even though I understood that children can be a burden on their parents, I couldn't help but feel envious whenever I heard about my friends' kids doing things like cooking dinner, giving thoughtful birthday gifts, or taking out the trash. And each time I felt that way, I hated myself for being jealous and sank into self-loathing. No matter how much love I poured into Lena, it felt like she never truly received it. Still, I believed I had done my best to raise her. Even as a single mom with limited finances, I took Lena to parks and movies when she was little, and we still managed to go on a trip once a year. I tried my hardest to create memories with her, never letting the fact that we were a single-parent family stop us from doing things. Yet, from a young age, Lena constantly belittled me, and even after Mike left, her attitude didn't change. By the time she was in high school, Lena's behavior toward me grew even worse.
She just takes me on trips to make herself feel like a good mom.
One day, while on the phone with her friend in her room, Lena laughed, unaware that I could hear her from the hallway.
We're going on another trip next week. I seriously don't want to go. If she has that much free time, she should work harder and earn more money. You're so lucky because your dad's a manager and your mom's beautiful.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hearing Lena's true feelings, I ran to my bedroom, shut the door, and cried alone. It felt like all my efforts had been completely invalidated. I wanted to give up, but I couldn't. I ended up canceling the trip I had been so excited about. Maybe Lena was right. Maybe it had been for my own satisfaction. That night, I told Lena, I canceled next week's trip.
What? Why?
Something urgent came up. I couldn't bring myself to tell her I'd overheard her phone call, so I lied. Lena smirked when she heard about the cancellation.
Oh, really? Then give me the money you saved from canceling.
She even had the nerve to say that. How did I not notice how clearly she disliked it until now? I was disgusted with myself for clinging to memories from ages ago when she seemed to enjoy it. No matter how hard I try, Lena probably won't change. Finally realizing that, I decided to focus only on fulfilling my parental duties until she became an adult. Lena graduated from high school and went on to college. When Lena said she wanted to go to college, I wasn't financially prepared and honestly wished she would reconsider. Still, I didn't want her to say she couldn't go to college just because she had a single parent, so I swallowed my pride, asked for help from relatives, and managed to scrape together the tuition.
There's child support, isn't there? I don't want to work yet, so I'll just spend the next 4 years having fun in college.
But even after explaining the situation to her, Lena didn't seem to take it seriously and assumed everything would somehow work out. If that's your attitude, I'd rather you skip college and get a job. I was annoyed by Lena's comment and snapped back at her, but she just leaned back arrogantly, acting superior.
Why? Lots of people think like me and still go to college, right? She retorted, reclining arrogantly.
Maybe so, but in our case,
Because you're a single mom, it's impossible? Did I ask you to become a single mom? You chose to get divorced, so stop making me sacrifice for your choices.
her words were calculated to leave me speechless. Sure enough, I had nothing to say and clenched my fists in frustration. Even if it wasn't entirely my fault, the divorce was still the responsibility of us, her parents. I had tried so hard to ensure Lena never felt lonely or disadvantaged because she had a single parent, but she still felt like she was the one making sacrifices. But I only had a few more years of obligations left. At least once the tuition was paid off, I could maintain some distance from her. True to her word, Lena spent her college days partying. Though she worked part-time, I sometimes found money missing from my wallet. When I confronted her, she never admitted to taking it. 2 years later, Lena turned 20. I still couldn't tell whether she was going to college to study or just to socialize. Even so, I worked tirelessly to fulfill my role as a parent, earning money, repaying the tuition loans from relatives, preparing meals, and keeping the house in order. Then one day, Lena dropped a bombshell.
I'm pregnant.
What? I practically shouted, unable to process her words. Pregnant? Well, she's still a student. How far along is she? What about college? Who's the father? I had so many questions, but the shock left me speechless. Seeing me like that, Lena smirked and added mockingly,
Well, I've got a new family now. I'm cutting ties with my ugly, creepy mom. You're not invited to my wedding, and you'll never see your grandchild.
Something inside me snapped when I heard those words. Maybe I don't have to fulfill my duties as a parent anymore. That's what I thought. I see. I'm relieved. Lena was stunned, her eyes wide at my unexpected response.
Really? You're okay with not seeing me anymore? Well, if you absolutely insist, I might let you see my baby. If you cover the delivery and childcare costs, of course.
No, that won't be necessary. Do whatever you want. Lena stared at me in disbelief as I smiled while saying this, her face frozen in shock. Then her expression turned red with anger, and she yelled,
What do you mean? Do whatever you want. You're still my mom, aren't you? Shouldn't you be more worried? Like asking who the father is or something?
I sighed, wondering how she could say such things after declaring she wanted to cut ties with me. Wasn't it you who said you wanted to sever ties? Fine, I'll stop being your mom, just as you wished.
Don't joke around. Do you really think you can stop being my mom?
You're an adult now, Lena. A fully grown woman with a new family, right? Are you really going to come crawling back to me now? My slightly mocking tone seemed to hit a nerve as Lena glared at me furiously. But it didn't affect me. I'd been hurt by her far too many times already. No matter what Lena did, I was confident my feelings wouldn't waver anymore. In the end, Lena stormed out of the house in a rage. She was probably staying at the father of her child's place. I never imagined I'd gain my freedom in this way, but I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. About a month later, I found an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. Since there was no address on it, it was probably delivered directly. Curious, I opened it and found a wedding invitation. The names on the invite were Lena and a man named Kevin Smith, a name I didn't recognize. The wedding date was still a few months away, and the ceremony was set to start at 11 a.m. However, the invitation stated that family members should arrive at the venue by 9:30 a.m. for introductions. After saying she wouldn't invite me, she had the nerve to send me an invitation. What was she thinking? I threw it in the trash, but found myself unable to forget the wedding date. It seemed I still had some lingering feelings as her parent. I had no intention of attending, but when the day arrived, today's the day. I hope everything goes smoothly. I couldn't help but glance at the calendar. I muttered to myself, but as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Lena. Hello.
Where are you? The family introductions are about to start.
As soon as I picked up, Lena shouted angrily. Oh, really? But didn't you say you weren't inviting me?
I sent you an invitation afterward, didn't I?
I already sent back my RSVP saying I wouldn't attend, didn't I? I have no intention of going. Hearing my response, Lena gasped. Though I had thrown away the invitation, I had dutifully returned the RSVP. Realizing I was serious about cutting ties, Lena began to sob quietly.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
I was wrong to say I wouldn't invite you. I'm sorry, but I really want you to come to my wedding.
Lena pleaded desperately with me. For a moment, I felt my resolve waver, but I calmly responded. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of going.
Think of it as your last duty as a parent. I'm begging you. I want you to see me in my wedding dress.
Her desperate cries pierced my heart. Reluctantly, I gave in. All right, but this will be the last time. I won't make it for the family introductions or the ceremony, but I'll be there for the reception.
Really? Thank you.
Lena was overjoyed at my reply. Feeling frustrated at my own softness, I hung up the phone and began to get ready. When I arrived at the wedding venue, it seemed the ceremony had just ended, and they were starting to guide guests to the reception hall. When I checked the seating chart, I saw that my seat had indeed been prepared. But when I looked at the name next to mine, I couldn't believe my eyes. The name of my ex-husband, Mike, was written there. I hadn't seen Mike since our divorce, nor had Lena met with him. So why was his name there? Feeling a bad premonition, I walked into the reception hall.
Oh, there you are. Took you long enough.
There was Mike, smirking as he looked at me. After the way he left, how could he show his face to me now? What was Lena thinking? Why would she want to bring Mike and me together? Mike sat down next to me despite my ignoring him and started talking.
Never thought we'd meet again at Lena's wedding, huh?
I didn't respond. While I no longer held a grudge against him, my dislike for him hadn't changed. Having him here made me deeply uncomfortable.
What? Giving me the silent treatment. Anyway, not showing up for the family introductions or the ceremony. What kind of mother does that?
Annoyed by my silence, Mike threw out a snide comment. Something about his words struck a nerve, and I turned to him. Wait a minute. What do you mean? Did you attend the family introductions?
Of course I did. I'm her father after all. Though I did surprise everyone by being there.
Lena was one thing, but what was Mike thinking? While he was biologically her father, he had done nothing to fulfill his role as a parent. And yet, he had the audacity to attend the family introductions alongside my relatives. It was beyond shameless.
You know, Lena really does take after me. She's beautiful. Good thing she didn't end up looking like you, huh?
Oblivious to my disgust, Mike looked pleased with himself. Lena begged me to come, so I thought of it as my last duty as a parent and came. But if Mike, as her father, was here, there really wasn't any need for me to be. With that thought, I stood up, intending to leave.
Hey, where are you going? It's about to start.
As I headed toward the exit, a staff member stopped me.
I'm terribly sorry, but the bride and groom are about to enter. Please refrain from leaving for the restroom at this time.
I paused. The staff wasn't at fault. Leaving now and opening the door wasn't something I wanted to do. I wasn't here to ruin the wedding. Reluctantly, I returned to my seat, much to Mike's satisfaction. As soon as I sat down, the lights dimmed and the introduction video began to play. The groom's introduction came first. Apparently, he was older and already working. I felt a brief moment of relief that he wasn't another college student, but that relief was short-lived. When Lena's introduction played, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Her parents had always gotten along well. She worked hard at her studies from a young age. She often helped her mom and was always praised for it. Currently, she's working part-time and using her earnings to help pay for her tuition. The video was a complete fabrication. Who was this person being introduced? The portrayal was so far removed from reality that I couldn't help but laugh. When Lena made her grand entrance, it was the first time I'd seen her in a while. Despite all her begging to get me to come, she immediately turned her head away when she saw me. Clearly, she hadn't wanted me there to share her special moment, but simply to keep up appearances. She probably thought it would look odd not to have her loving parents present. I hadn't been invited out of affection, but as a prop for Lena's image. Anger simmered within me. How much longer did she plan to use me like this? If she was going to become a parent herself, she ought to reflect on her own behavior. That thought lingered as I watched the wedding unfold. The only reason I stayed until the end was curiosity, because what would Lena say in her letter to her parents during the climactic moment?
And now, will the bride and groom's parents please come to the stage?
Well, it's our turn.
Mike said cheerfully as he stood up. I followed him reluctantly and stood on stage.
To my dear mom and dad.
Lena began reading her letter. Just like the introduction video, it was full of lies.
While dad was away on overseas assignments, Mom was always there to support me.
When she said that, I almost burst out laughing. Some relatives who knew the truth were wide-eyed, clearly confused about why Mike was even there and at the content of Lena's letter. But Lena, seemingly caught up in her own performance, read the letter aloud, tears streaming down her face. What was even more baffling was that Mike was also crying as he listened.
That was such a touching letter from the bride. Mother of the bride, would you like to say a few words to Lena as she begins her new journey?
The host's voice echoed through the hall, and a staff member rushed over to hand me a microphone. It must have been an unscripted edition by the host. Lena looked startled, her face paling slightly as she glanced at me. I raised the corners of my mouth in a slight smile and brought the mic close to my lips. Marriage is challenging. No matter how hard a wife tries, she may find herself unloved by her children and abandoned by her husband. Lena and Mike both froze, their faces filled with shock at my words. Lena is no exception. Starting off with so many lies, I wonder how you plan to build trust.
Lies? What do you mean?
Kevin, the groom, tilted his head in confusion at my statement. Lena hastily raised her voice.
What are you talking about? There's nothing but honesty between us.
Her voice rang out across the venue. But I wasn't about to let her off the hook. Oh, really? Like when you told everyone your dad left for an overseas assignment when he actually left because of an affair, or when you stole money from my wallet multiple times yet claimed you paid for your tuition yourself.
That's
Far from having no lies, there isn't a single truthful episode here. I don't even know whose wedding I'm attending anymore. Lena turned pale and was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Mike, exposed for having walked out due to an affair, turned bright red.
Wait, what's going on? Lena's parents are divorced, and she stole money from her mom's wallet?
Lena had probably lied to Kevin's parents as well to make herself look better. Kevin's father muttered in disbelief, and murmurs began to ripple through the room.
Excuse me.
Even the host seemed flustered by the unexpected turn of events. Taking a deep breath, I spoke again. I didn't come here to ruin this wedding, but lying to the people who gathered here out of genuine goodwill, deceiving your spouse and his family. That's despicable. And frankly, I was fed up with being used by you until the very end, so I had to set the record straight. Lena clearly hadn't expected me to push back. She seemed completely frozen, tears welling in her eyes as she fell silent. If you're going to get married and become a parent, stop hiding behind lies to maintain a facade. That's the last piece of advice I can give you as your mother. Lena seemed to have been moved by my words. She covered her face and broke down in tears. Kevin hurried to support her.
Hey, what the hell are you thinking, causing a scene like this?
Mike panicked and scolded me. But coming from him, that was beyond ironic. You're asking what I'm thinking. How about what you're thinking? Acting like a father here after doing absolutely nothing for Lena, not even paying child support.
That's
Wait, he didn't pay child support?
Lena raised her tear-streaked face to look at me, shocked by what I had said. Mike, now publicly exposed as not only an unfaithful man, but also a father who hadn't paid child support, shrank in his seat, clearly embarrassed. But honestly, I didn't care about Mike right now. I looked directly at Lena and began to speak. That's right. I never received a single penny. I raised you entirely on my own.
What? than all the money we had until now.
It was the money I earned. Sure, we weren't wealthy, and I couldn't give you a life of luxury, but I did everything I could, both financially and emotionally, to provide for you. Lena turned pale. Of course, you only ever treated me like a robot, something to do your bidding, and never once accepted my love.
That's not what I meant.
I never once told Lena that I was receiving child support. She must have mistakenly assumed we were financially stable because of it. Now, it seemed she was finally realizing just how awful her behavior had been, stealing money from me, saying she was going to college just to party, and all the other terrible things she had said and done up until now.
I'm so sorry, Mom. I really didn't know anything.
Lena stammered out an apology in a panic. But ignorance was no excuse. And it wasn't just about the money. She had belittled and mocked me for years. While it was a sign of growth that she could apologize, I wasn't ready to forgive her. I don't mind that you didn't know, but thanks for inviting me here to be discarded when I was no longer useful to you, just because you needed me to maintain appearances. With those parting words, I handed the microphone back to the staff. Amid the tense atmosphere, I left the venue alone. I have no idea how the rest of the wedding unfolded. The host and staff probably managed to keep things going somehow. Lena didn't contact me afterward. A few days later, I received a letter from Lena's college. Thinking she might have dropped out to take care of her child, I opened the envelope, only to find a tuition payment notice. Tuition, so she hasn't dropped out? Maybe she was planning to take a leave of absence. Either way, Lena now had a family of her own. Since she had cut ties with me, I had no obligation to pay. I ignored the notice, and about a month later, Lena called me for the first time since the wedding.
I got a notice saying my tuition hasn't been paid. What's going on?
As soon as I answered, I was greeted by Lena's annoyed voice. Perhaps the wedding was now a bitter memory for her. Despite crying and apologizing so desperately back then, she seemed to have swept it under the rug, reverting to her usual brash tone. I smirked and replied, "What's going on? Are you saying I need to pay it? Even if I did, I have no obligation to cover it anymore, do I?"
What are you talking about?
You've already cut ties with me, so figure it out yourself or rely on your new family. Lena was at a loss for words. She must have never imagined I'd go so far to sever ties with her completely. I pressed on, continuing firmly. Besides, you'll probably have to drop out of college, right? Or maybe take a leave of absence. Either way, you need to explain the situation and stop the tuition payments. Normally, it would be her responsibility to figure this out herself, but I sighed and gave her the necessary advice. But then Lena said something outrageous.
No, I'm not dropping out or taking a leave of absence.
What? You can't go to school with a baby, can you? Is your husband going to take care of the child?
No, I was planning to have you take care of the baby after it's born.
Stammering, Lena began to explain her plan. Even now, she was still trying to rely on me. I was left speechless by her audacity. But knowing Lena, I wasn't entirely surprised. However, I also had my job. Taking care of her child was impossible, and even if it weren't, I had no intention of helping her. Me? Why on earth would I take care of someone else's baby? Do you honestly think you can keep going to college and leave all the parenting to someone else And where do you think the money for all of this will come from? Do you think raising a child is free if you're not working? It finally seemed to sink in that I had no intention of helping her. Lena looked visibly shocked, her voice trembling as she muttered,
I'm sorry. Please, don't say that. I'll apologize. Just please forgive me.
Her voice was mixed with sobs as she pleaded.
Kevin's salary is low, and it's impossible for him to cover my tuition too. Without you, I can't stay in college, and I can't raise my child. You're my mom. You're supposed to help me.
And with that, she broke into loud sobs. Despite being a student and having chosen to sever ties with me when she found a new family, Lena still thought she could rely on me. It was ridiculous. She couldn't possibly believe everything in life would go her way. Her complete lack of initiative to take responsibility for herself left me utterly exasperated. I'm sorry, but I'm done letting you manipulate me. If I was such an annoying mom, use me as a negative example and do your best raising your child. Goodbye.
Wait.
I heard her voice trying to stop me, but I hung up without hesitation and blocked her number. Lena would have no choice but to drop out of college without the tuition being paid. It might seem cold, but clinging to the parent-child relationship for the sake of obligation only leads to unhappiness. I resolved to live for myself from now on. And so, I finally gained my freedom. Later, I heard that Lena gave birth to a baby girl and divorced Kevin after discovering he had been unfaithful. Now, she's raising the child on her own as a single mother. She tried asking my parents, her grandparents, and other relatives for money. But after witnessing Lena's selfish behavior during the wedding, no one offered to help her.
Honestly, when Mike showed up for the family introductions, but Karen didn't, I knew something was off. Lena's been way too self-centered. Now that she has a child, she needs to grow up.
My mom remarked, clearly fed up with Lena's antics. It seems all the relatives were saying the same thing. No matter how much Lena complained or cried, there was no one left to come to her aid. According to my mom, Lena eventually dropped out of college and is now working hard while sending her child to daycare. Her social media is filled with pictures of her child. It seems she's raising her child with love and care. Hearing this, I couldn't help but think, at least she took after me in that way. However, just because you give love to a child doesn't mean they'll return it. I'm sure Lena will face even greater challenges moving forward, especially as a single mother. I hope, through parenting, she might come to understand my feelings, even a little. On a side note, I heard that Mike has become a recluse since Lena's wedding. Apparently, one of the groom's relatives at the wedding was Mike's boss. Seeing Mike, who hadn't paid child support or contributed to parenting, brazenly attending as the bride's father shocked the boss. To make matters worse, Mike had been spreading rumors at work, claiming I had been the one who cheated, even though it was his infidelity that caused our divorce. The boss, understandably distrustful of Mike's character, confronted him in a meeting. The divorce happened a long time ago, and no formal disciplinary action was taken. However, being called out for his outrageous behavior took a toll on his mental health, and he has since been unable to go to work. When a mutual acquaintance told me about his situation, I couldn't help but laugh. For someone so shameless, Mike turned out to be surprisingly sensitive. I never imagined he'd face karma in this way, but it did give me a sense of closure. After being freed from Lena, I finally regained control of my life. The money I used to spend on her is now entirely for me. I can go on trips with my friends, treat my parents, and do all the things I couldn't do before. There's still so much ahead of me. I'm even thinking about starting to invest for my future. I want to ensure that my 20 years spent raising Lena weren't wasted and move forward to create my own happiness.